Michael Flynn. I was born on the 21st of April, 1937. I was born in a place called Raniket, which is in Uttar Pradesh, northern India. We lived there for 3 years. My father was in the Royal Artillery, and he was posted to India. And because it was quite hot where he was, we were sent up into the hills where it was much cooler. And that's where I was born there. But we were only there for 3 years. My mother told me that by the time I reached 3, I could speak fluent Hindi. And we had servants. And she said I was always conversing with the wallahs, as they called them there, who helped with the housework. And she said I just learnt the language. But, of course, once I came back, I forgot the whole lot. I haven't got a clue. But I don't really remember too much about what I did. I've got pictures of me on a bicycle and wearing my dobi, which is the hat or whatever, to protect against the sun. And in fact, when I came home, I was told never to take it off. When I came home to England, I kept it on as there for a while because I thought I was supposed to. We came back by boat, and my mother and me, and it took us 6 weeks from India to England. That was in 1940. Even I went to India to trace the place where I was born. So we started off in Delhi and whatever, and looked up where we're in, and we had to get a bus up to this place from Delhi. It was right up north. It took 16 hours on the bus. Where you could imagine all the Indians, what they were doing. They had young kids with them, that were throwing up or crapping in the bucket, and all sorts of things were happening. Every time they went round a bend up, and all the luggage fell off the top, and they all got out, yabba, 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 and everything. Anyway, we eventually got up there, 16 hours. We had no accommodation, of course. So I asked, we went to the tourist office and said, is there any accommodation here? And he said, oh, well, most of the people go to this place up in the hill. Where is? So I said, okay. So we got a cab up there, and we stayed in this place, and we'd been travelling now for the best part of a day, and all he wanted was a bath. So when this guy came out, dressed in a suit, and, he was a really old-fashioned sort of thing, and he said, come and see the accommodation, Mr. Flynn. Well, we walked right down past all these, big sheds they were. And this was the accommodation. So we get into this place. It really was like a big shed. About the size of, I don't know, about the size of a ballroom or something. And so Eve sat down inside. I said, well, what about the bathrooms? He said, oh, just come with me, Mr. Flynn. So we walked along, and he pulled aside this curtain, and there was a bucket and a shower on concrete floor. That was the bathroom. So I looked round to Eve and I went, yeah. So he said, and we got a second bathroom up here, and we want exactly the same bucket and a shower and whatever. That was the bath, It was dreadful. Anyway, we couldn't do it. So he said, I suppose, Mr. Flynn, you'd now like a cup of tea, wouldn't you? So I said, no, I wouldn't. I said, I'd like a bloody glass of beer. He said, this is a dry state, Mr. Flynn. I said, I don't care. I want a beer. He said, yes, okay, Mr. Flynn. Went and got me some beer. We stayed there for 2 days. Wonderful views you could see the Himalayas in the distance. And when we came to check out, he got the bill, and I showed him my American Express card. He said, oh, Mr. Flynn, he said, oh, I would prefer cash. I said, well, take me down the local bank and I'll draw some cash out. So I went down, and he was sitting out, and I went down there, and he came out and he said, okay, Mr. Flynn, the rate is so-and-so, rupee. I said, well, I'm not very happy with that. He said, well, why is that? I said, I was getting better rate than that down in Delhi. What rate do you want? So I told him. So he went into the bank, he came out and said, okay. I got the rate I said, and that was it. And then, as we were coming away, we had met. There was a little Indian soldier. He was a captain or something, and we got talking for some reason because I told him my father, and I bumped into him as we were going. So Mr. Flynn, he said, I've been looking for you. He said, I want you to come to the soldiers' quarters, he said. I can show you where your father would have been, come in and have a beer with us and everything. And he took us into the quarters up there, and we had a look round and showed me where the sergeant's quarters were and everything. And then he took us up to the hospital where I was born, when I was actually born. We went into the ward and everything. And then while we were there on the Sunday, we went to Mass. And the priest there, I asked him, told him when I was born, do you have some record, of me, because I was baptized here? He said, and he went down into the cellars and he came back with a copy of my baptismal certificate. And I've got a copy of it now. He announced to all the congregation, we have some important people over from England. It was incredible. Wonderful experience, India. If you ever get the chance, do go. It's a great, great country. I went to school in Our Lady of Grace, Charlton, primary school, and I was there until 11, after passing the old 11 plus exam as it was. And from there I went to St Joseph's Academy, Blackheath, which was a grammar school. And I was there from 1948 to 1953. So as growing up, we tended to go to holiday camps, mainly Pontins or Butlins. They were the holidays that we had. We didn't go abroad with my parents at all. So as growing up, it was really just holiday camps. My mum's name was Florence Balsam, her name, and she was born in Woolwich, I think. My dad was obviously born in Tipperary, Carrick-on-Suir, and he came over and joined the artillery, which was stationed at Woolwich, and that's how my mum and dad met. And they when did they get married? I think they got married 1933, 34, something like that. I'm not exactly sure. But that's how they met anyway. She had quite a few different jobs. I mean, he was always in the artillery. He was a farrier, looked after the horses. And even when he came out of the army, he did 22 years. He's carried on being a farrier. And I can always remember, we lived in Greenwich at the time, and he would come home sometimes with his ribs all plastered up where the horse has kicked him and broken his ribs. That happened several times. And he gave that up after about, 3 or 4 years, and then he went to work as a bank messenger for one of the banks, NatWest or something like that. My mum always worked in factories. She worked Peak Preen's, biscuit people in Bermondsey. She was always in factories all the time. But my granddad and grandmum, they were Sarah and Ted. He was on the river. He worked on the river. Little small man, smoked a pipe. Remember him. I don't ever know if my gran worked. I don't think so. She had 12 children. 12, of which I think 6 died, at birth or early on. And the other 6 were my mum and 2 sisters, and then 3 boys, who I used to see quite regularly. But I can always remember my gran, fantastic lady, absolutely. All she did was cook, wash and clean. That's all she ever did, 7 days a week. The only time she ever went out was Sunday night. They took her down to the pub and she had a couple of Guinnesses. Apart from that, she never did anything else. Whenever you went there, you had to have something to eat. She would cook you a breakfast, whether you'd had one already or anything. She used to work on an old mangle, for the washing and everything. Wonderful lady. Absolutely wonderful. I adored her. She would be sitting down. I remember once she was sitting down, cuddling one of the babies, one of the grandsons, and she was listening to the Goon Show. I don't know if you remember the Goon Show, when they all, Peter Sellers and doing that, and they mad, swimming. And she said, she said, this shouldn't be allowed on the radio, she said. There was no swearing in it, but she just She couldn't, it's like today, I suppose. She just couldn't cope with it. But she was sitting there cuddling this baby, and she never woke up. She died. Broke my heart. Really did. She's a lovely lady. Really lovely lady. Sarah Balsam. And she married Jeffrey. So her married name was Sarah Jeffrey. And they lived in Charlton. So that was it. Walking distance of the football ground. The granddad, he used to go down the pub every Sunday lunchtime. And nobody could start their meal till he came back. You had to wait for him. It sounds as though he was ruling the roost, which he was in a way. That's how it worked. Everybody used to sit down and have the Sunday lunch, but not until he sat down and come back from the pub. He used the bugle horn. That was his pub. And when he died, there was a big funeral for him, and from the bugle horn, they all went from the bugle. He was known there. And I'll be there tomorrow. I had a wartime memory when we were living in Park Vista in Greenwich. For those who know Park Vista, it's at the bottom of a place called Maze Hill, quite a steep hill. And you went up the hill and then walked along past the old Roan School on the left and Greenwich Park on the right. And then you're on Blackheath. My mother was walking up there with me to go to the primary school. It would have been, 1943, 44, 45 or something. And as we were walking, a doodlebug went overhead. Now, do you know what a doodlebug is? It's a bomb that the Germans used to send over, and it would have flames spitting out the back, and it only had a certain distance. And when the flame stopped, the bomb dropped. And she grabbed hold of me and lay on the floor, and this thing passed over. And within about 20 seconds, it stopped and dropped. Boom, down it came. It didn't hit us or a feather, but I remember seeing that doodlebug just above. It was no more than probably a couple of 100 feet above me, And when we were living down there, every Sunday evening, my mum and dad and myself, we used to go across just the road. At the bottom of the Maze Hill, just over there, there was these lovely houses. It's right near Maze Hill Station. And they used to go and play cards every Sunday night, and I used to go with them. And it was a ritual. They did it for years. And I got fed up with it once, and I kicked up a little bit of a stink. What would I have been? 8 years old, I suppose. And I said, can't we do something different? I kept on and on and on. So they said, yeah. And there was a place at Deptford called the New Cross Empire, where they had comedy acts, people on the stage doing funny things, funny walks and singing and all that. And we all went there that evening. And when we come back, that house that we played cards in was a pile of bricks. Bomb had landed on it. We would have all been killed. We would have all been killed. Even our house wasn't broken or flat we were in. It was, there's some damage to it, but not so bad. So for the next 6 months, at the end of the road, they had a sort of sheltered accommodation, and we lived there until they put everything together again, But the other house, it was never rebuilt. But it's incredible. My first job, I got a job with a firm of accountants in Lewisham, and I was there for 2 years until I got called up for national service. So I was there from 53 to 55, and I got called. There was a firm of accountants, and I got called up to national service on the 1st of December 1955 to the RAF, and I did 2 years national service. I was, after training, I was posted to a place called Middle Wallop, which is down in Hampshire, and they put me down as a fighter plotter, which meant that you were underground and pushing those things around on the map and everything, which I didn't fancy at all. So we were told, or as people always have said, never volunteer for anything when you're in the forces. But I did. A chap came round one day while we were down there still doing this training, and he said, would anybody like to be in the RAF PT display team? Well, my hand shot up quicker than you can imagine, because I loved gymnastics and football and rugby and anything to do with sport. And so I went off to a place called in Halton in Aylesbury, and we trained for 6 weeks solid. Just solid training and training, getting you fit. And then after that, so for the rest of my time, was spent doing shows all around the country, a lot of agricultural shows. We did one at the interval of a speedway match on Wembley Stadium. It was on the Wembley pitch. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then for the last 6 weeks, you were sent on a firefighting course. I don't know why, but we did, and we went down into Gloucester somewhere for 2 weeks on a firefighting course. And then when that finished, they said you could have a privileged posting, just name a place. And I put down for a place in Epping called North Weald. There's a station there, North Weald, but it didn't work out, and they sent me up to Scotland, can you believe? It's supposed to be a privileged posting. So I was up in Scotland for, I don't know how long really, a couple of months, 3 months. But I do remember getting, over a weekend, a 3-day pass. And I was right up in the northeast of Scotland, right up near Dundee, a place called Anstruther. And with this pass, I hitchhiked home. I got lifts with this, people in lorries and cars. I jumped on the back of a railway truck. You just jumped in the back, no one saw me. And that took me down a bit further. And eventually I got down to just outside London, and a Rolls Royce pulled up. And this chap said, I've always admired the forces, he said, so where are you going? I said, I'm going somewhere in London. He said, well, jump in. And he went, oh, no, not here, not at the back with me, in the front with the driver. So, but anyway, he dropped me off in London, and that was it. And that weekend, I, met up with me, whatever friends were around. And next door, where I lived in Greenwich, there was a bookmaker. At that time, there were no betting shops. Betting was frowned upon. And his name was Albert Glasspool. And I read in the paper about this horse called Sunrise. And it was running in the Northumberland Derby, Northumberland Plate. And I put £0.50 crown each way on it, which was the equivalent of a quarter of my week's wages, because I was saluting for £1, 2 and 6 at that time a week. And the horse won at about 100 to 6, and I won a fiver. And that's a month's wages for me in the RAF. So I didn't go back. I went AWOL. And I was a day late going back. I had a rail pass by it now for some reason. And when I got back, I was supposed to sign in. At the time I had, I forget what it was, some sinus problem or something. And I was supposed to sign in to the medical officer and do something or other. Well, I didn't, obviously, but it was a weekend, and I didn't think anybody knows. So I climbed over the fence at the back of the station, broke into the MO's office and forged my signature to say I had been there for medicine. And lo and behold, I got away with it. Nobody knew I'd gone AWOL. Nothing. So then, for some reason, they suddenly said, look, for the last 4 weeks, you can go down to the North Weald. And so I did. I had another month, my final 4 weeks before I was demobbed at North Weald, which was great because it was very close to home. I could come home weekends and so forth, And that was the end of my service. Came out in 1957, December. And then the people who I'd worked with as an accountant got in touch with me, and they said they would offer me some wage. I forget what it was. It was a ridiculous sum, £2.50 a week. And I said, well, that's not enough. And I applied for a job just off Tottenham Court Road, Goode Street, with a firm called Marsham Tyre. And I worked in the office there. But I was only there for 6 months. I think it was 6 months. And I got a phone call or a letter from the accountants there in Lewisham, who said they could now offer me a better wage. They wanted me to go back. So I did go back, and I stayed there. I was made a partner in later life, and I stayed there for the rest of my working life until I left there in 2002. But by and large, we had a good load of clients, and we had a lot of fun, really. Yeah, it was good. We used to deal with a lot of barrow boys. There was a big market there, barrow boys, fruit and veg and all that sort of stuff. And there was one guy called Harry Gill. Now, when VAT came in, food was exempt, so we never had to register. But he came to see me one day and said, "Mike, I've got to register because I'm importing these brass ornaments and things from Morocco, and that's vatable." So I registered him for that, and every quarter he'd bring his papers in, and I'd write the book up for him, do it all, file the return. That was it. And then after about 2 or 3 years, he said, "Mike, you said that you told me everything was all right with my books." I said, "Of course they're all right. What's the problem?" He said, "Well, I've got a VAT inspection." He said, "They want to see the books." I said, "Well, that's not a problem." So I give him the books and everything. I said, "They're fine out there. They balance nothing." Anyway, 3 days later, he came in all agitated and said, "You said everything was fine." I said, "Yeah, why isn't it?" He said, "Well, I've got this 3-page letter here, look, full of queries." I said, "Well, that don't make sense, Harry. It don't make sense." I said, "What were they like? Was there one inspector or two?" And he went all quiet. I said, "Harry, how many were there?" He said, "Well, I didn't actually see them." I said, "What do you mean you didn't see them?" He said, "Well, I couldn't be bothered." He said, "I left the books on the doorstep." He said, "I went racing." So I said, "No wonder they got the hump with you." So anyway, I just ticked off all the queries and everything was fine, But I enjoyed work. It was good, and I had a successful career there. And in fact, I still do some work from home with clients who wanted to stay with me when I retired. And that's my working career, really. I played football regularly. I played for Charlton Catholic. They were in a Catholic league, and I was picked to represent them to play the Liverpool League, and we went up to Liverpool to play. And it was all Liverpool and Everton juniors, and we got smashed 7-0. Never had a clue, but I was picked to represent them. I then played for a team called Lee Rangers for a while, and also the Co-op, which was down Footscray Road. And we got to the final of the league, which we won 3-1. And I actually scored a goal, even though I was centre-half, just came up for a corner and managed to score. So I really enjoyed playing football. What happened in the end, my eyesight deteriorated a bit, and so I wasn't able to carry on playing football for as long as I'd have liked. So I took up badminton, and I played for Lewisham. I used to play down in Lewisham Hall down there. That was for about 4 or 5 years, so I enjoyed that. And now golf took over then, and I've been playing golf now for the last 10, 15 years, travelling all over. Been to Ireland, been to France, playing golf. I enjoy it. Getting more and more hopeless at it, but I still enjoy it. It's a great leveller, and I thoroughly enjoy the 19th most of all. When my dad came back from the war in 1945, he took me down the valley. I supported him ever since. And I've been all over the country. So I've probably been to about 30 or 40 different grounds, I still go to the odd away game, and this year I'm going to go away with my friends to Shrewsbury. I've not been there before to see them, so we've had our ups and downs, obviously. Lots of relegations, lots of promotions. 2 wonderful playoff victories. 25th of May 1998 when we beat Sunderland 7-6 on penalties. And then just recently, 2 or 3 years ago, we beat them again in extra time, didn't we? 2-1. And I know you were there then. So great days. But it was when we played Huddersfield. And Bill Shankly was the manager at the time of Huddersfield. And the centre-half was a guy called Derek Ufton, who also played cricket for Kent, wicket-keeper. But he was susceptible to dislocated shoulders. And he dislocated his shoulder after about 20 minutes, and couldn't carry on, and there were no substitutes then. So we had 10 men for the rest of the time. Well, we were 5-1 down at half-time, and we came back to 5-all, and I think they went ahead 6-5. We equalised 6-all, and about 5 minutes from time, a guy called Buck Ryan scored the winner, and we won 7-6 with 10 men. Johnny Summers scored 5 goals. He died soon after that, but what an occasion that was. Absolutely incredible. You never see anything like that. 7-6 after being 5-1 down. I don't think anybody's ever done that. Wonderful. I remember we, Aston Villa, we played once, and I think it's the biggest defeat ever. I think we lost 11-1. I wasn't there, but that stuck in my memory as well. So great days, but it's in my blood. I've known people before change allegiance. I can't see why they would do that. It doesn't ring true to me, just because the team's successful. They say, I support Man United or I support Liverpool. But they live in London and, then they don't go and see them. So it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. So, no, great times down there, and I'll be there tomorrow. Sport has been a big part of my life, really has. I played rugby for the school, the first 11. I was hooker. I also threw the discus. I was representing the discus. There was always all the schools athletics meeting at a place called Motspur Park, and I represented them for throwing the discus. I didn't win, but that was good fun. That was okay. But John and I, when we left school, we joined the Curlew Rowing Club. There's a pub in Greenwich called the Cutty Sark, and that was right next to this Curlew Rowing Club. And he and I joined that, and we had about 2 or 3 seasons rowing in a 4. We had, we used to train on a Sunday morning, and then there were regattas every now and again. We never ever won a race because we were drinking too much, but there we are. We went to Gravesend once in a regatta, and I remember we sank. So we had to swim in. So we had a good time there playing that, So, yeah, it's been a very eventful life, and it's been dictated a lot by sport. As you see, I played cricket. I had a funny story about cricket. When I was at work, there was a guy there called Tony Huntley. He was the son of one of the bosses, and he played cricket. He was fanatic. And he lived in Brighton. And he said to me, Mike, what are you doing this weekend? I said, nothing particular. He said, we're 1 short for cricket. Can you play? I said, yeah, okay. So I went down to Brighton, and I wasn't anything special at cricket, but they put me in at number 11. I remember going in last. I was bowled first ball. I remember that clearly. And then they put me. He said, Mike, you told me that you can run about quite a bit. So they put me out of the boundary. And after about 10 minutes, this ball came running. Somebody whacked the ball at the boundary, and I'm running up, and I couldn't quite get to it. And he came to me. He said, Mike, you don't have any problem running? I said, well, I am actually, Tony. Yeah. I said, this box is killing me. He said, you silly dope. He said, you only wear that for batting. I hadn't taken it out. He never asked me again, Strange, isn't it? But no, sport has been a big part of my life. Really has. Well, there's quite a few friends that I play golf with, and I like Robbie, the guy down the road who was out with yesterday, with your dad and that. He had a plane. He used to have a plane at Biggin Hill, and we've flown with him to France to play golf, flown with him to Ireland to play golf, and we've had some really good cracks out there. We were playing golf in Ireland once, and when we finished playing golf, we played in the morning, and I said to the others, do you want to go racing this afternoon? They all said, yeah. There was 4 of us all, yeah, we'll go racing at Tremor. So we go in this pub, and we were having a few beers and a sandwich, and I said to the guy behind the bar, what time's the first race at Tremor? He said, you're a bit late, aren't you? I said, what do you mean a bit late? He said, it was yesterday. So that didn't go down too well. No, we've had some good cracks, in France as well. We played in the 2K. There's all sorts of stories, we played golf in Bournemouth, about a dozen of us every year. We did it for 17 years. We played 5 days on the trot and 2 rounds of golf, not just one, with very little sleep. And there was one year we were down there and we were playing cards at about 1 o'clock in the morning, playing cards. And I wanted to go to the loo. So I'm walking around the corridor in the hotel, and of course that time of night, we were the only ones up. And the ladies' loo was nearby, where the gents was way down, So I went in the ladies' loo. And in the ladies' loo, virtually backed onto where we were playing cards, and I could hear them laughing and everything. So I've climbed out of this window to walk across the roof to them, and it was glass. Glazed glass, and I fell through it. Held up with this things like that, yelling and screaming. And Robbie said, it's Flynn, he said, he's got lippy with someone, they whacked him or something. And they go running around. He said, you cosy bastard, what are you doing? He's looking up at me now. I said, Rob, I think I've cut myself, I'm bleeding, I'm soaked down here. Don't worry, mate, don't worry. So they've gone round and they've got this ironing board out. And he put the ironing board out. He said, now get hold of that ironing board. So I've managed to get hold of it, and they bit by bit pulled me across. Because this glazing thing, it doesn't actually shatter. It just breaks in fragments. My legs are through and everything. He said, have a look. So he got me off. He said, you ain't cut your dope. He said, it's all the rain on the roof. He said, you're just soaked. So we went back into the thing, and I said, first thing I said was, whose deal is it? And it was funny. Some people, the governor of the hotel, when he came in next day, of course, he's heard about the incident, and we were checking out the next day. He said, what are you going to do, mate, about settling up the bill for the roof? I said, you've got to be insured, ain't you? Put it down to insurance. He said, well, I don't know. He said, they put the premiums up and everything. I said, well, I'll tell you what, Barry. If we take it to court or something, if they say where was the owner of the hotel at the time of the incident, what would you say then? He said, I'll put it down to insurance, Mike. He was in the hotel room with some bird, he was married, and his wife didn't know. So we got away with that. We got married, Eve and I, we got married in 1984, in June. I know that because there's a thing in the hall there, I see every day. And we got married down at Woolwich Town Hall. And before the marriage, we were getting married at 2 o'clock. We went in this pub opposite. It was called the Director General. And we were in there about, 1 o'clock. And Eve said, we haven't got any witnesses. So I said, do we need witnesses? She said, yeah, we need 2 witnesses. So anyway, we were having a drink. And I looked up at the bar, and there was a chap there, and a crowd of, so 2 blokes and a load of women and that, all having laughing, having a good time. So I went up to them. I said, sorry to interrupt, but see that lady sitting down there? She said, yeah. I said, we're getting married in half an hour's time. We need 2 witnesses. Could you help us out? Of course we can, he said. His name was Nicholas something. He was the solicitor just over the road. And they were celebrating this young lad having qualified. And so they were all there. So they came over, and 2 of them came in and were witnesses for us. And when we came out, all the other ones had got a load of confetti and threw it all over us. And we went back in the pub with them and bought them champagne, and it was hilarious. It was good. And then we drove all the way to York for our honeymoon. We stayed in York for 2 or 3 nights. So that was the story of the wedding. Eve has regularly got in touch with this Nicholas. I forget his other name, but he said he's lived off that story so many times. He's told it to people. He said it's hilarious. When Eve and I used to live in Eltham, she had this thing. She'd get up during the night, say, to go to the loo. when she came back in the room, she would jump into the bed. She'd do a jump, which got on my nerves. So one night she went to the loo, and so what happened was I moved the bed. So she came in, jumped, and of course landed on the floor. And then another occasion when we used to go to France for France rugby, a crowd of us, did it for years and years. And one year, the girls came along. Eve came along and her sister Joan came along. We obviously went to the rugby, and then after the rugby we all went out boozing, and the girls went to the Moulin Rouge, I think, or Folie Bergère, one of those. Anyway, we had a really good time. We didn't meet up with the girls or anything, and I got into the hotel, into the room, 3:00. Eve wasn't even home. She wasn't there. I thought, I'm not having this, bloody cheek. So there was 2 single beds we were in. So I got her bed, took it apart and put it in the bathroom where she couldn't see it. So she came in about 4:00 laughing and giggling with Joan. I could hear them. And I'm telling them I'm fast asleep. And she comes in the room and there's no bed. And of course she couldn't see who it was me. And I was covered in the shame. And she said, Joan, this is the wrong room. She said, what do you mean it's the wrong room? She said, there's only one bed. She said, no, that must be right. Anyway, they checked with the concierge downstairs. She said, no, that's the right room, madam. So, of course, she came in and she looked around and she saw the bed in the bath. That was it. I had a trick on it like that. Yeah, it's good. We had some good holidays as well abroad. We've had some good holidays, so some fine times. Before we got married, some reason I owed her some money. I had to give her some money for something or other. And so I wrote this cheque out, and she didn't bother to look at the cheque. She just paid it over the counter, and this woman said, do you know this person? So she said, well, yes. He said, well, he's got a funny sense of humour, hasn't he? So she said, why? She said, the cheque's made out to Mrs. Big Knockers. So she said, I think we can't accept this. I've got some real arseholes for grandsons.
Yeah.
Now we've got some lovely, lovely grandsons who've helped us out. They really are, and we think the world of them. And the grandkids, and we're very, very happy with our lives at the moment. Our health is the most important thing. You have to get on with what you meet, but we have great times now with the grandkids and and everything. And really, I think we're very, very lucky people. We're not hard up. We're not millionaires or anything, but we're not hard up. People have got to realise there's always someone worse off. Always. I mean, during this lockdown, we've got a lovely garden, and you just think of these people in tower blocks with young kids. It must be murder for them. So we are very, very lucky. All right, we've worked to get to that position, but life is lovely. So what I say to everybody, enjoy it while you can.